This is the Tech Phantom, and today we start our walkthrough of Dark Souls for the PS3, which will eventually take us to the downloadable content. And we are going to be using a female sorcerer character, which we've called Tessa. And on a previous video I showed you the actual character creation procedure for this character, in case you were curious. So while we watch the introductory movie, let me tell you a little bit about what it is that I'm trying to accomplish with this walkthrough. And if you've seen the previous version of this video in lower resolution, I'm going to rehash a little bit of it, so you can pretty much skip that previous video, or you can go back and take a look at it just in case I missed anything. I will leave it up to you. I will try not to miss anything that I covered in the previous video, since the quality was not very good, and this one is much easier on the eyes and hopefully on the ears as well. So when I first played the downloadable content on the PC, I found myself struggling quite a bit, and the reason was that I had come to rely on the Darkwood Grain Ring and on elemental weapons, and both of those were nerfed. They were downgraded pretty significantly in the latest patch and in the latest downloadable content. So I was a little bit upset at the beginning because I was having problems with the game in areas where I hadn't had any problems before. But I figured out a way to adapt my gameplay, my strategy, and my tactics, and actually my builds to get through the downloadable content. And I basically found a way that I could try to be a step ahead of the game as far as my build was concerned. So I was able to get through the game pretty quickly, pretty easily, and by the time I got to the downloadable content, I had a very nice build that was able to deal, not overpowered, but a good build that I was able to use for the bosses in the new content. So that's one of the main reasons for doing this walkthrough with the downloadable content, and that is to share some of the things that I've learned with you guys in case you are struggling with the changes that were imposed by From Software, especially for the PS3 players, since the patch is very, very new to us PS3 players. The other thing for this walkthrough is that I will be talking a little bit about lore, and specifically I'll be discussing those areas where my interpretation is different from the interpretation that has been out and discussed in the community, or areas where I just have some crazy ideas and crazy thoughts, and I'm looking for your feedback to see whether you think that I'm going down the right path at all. And actually, that's one of the beauties of Dark Souls, is that it is open to interpretation, and it does allow you to role play and to piece together the dialogue and the item descriptions, and to weave whatever story you want based on your role playing. And finally, the last reason for this walkthrough is that I do want to talk and show you what I'm going to call secrets or obscure loot or obscure items. Some things that you might miss on a walkthrough that I haven't seen covered in other videos as much. Some of them are not very obscure, but some of them are things that I've discovered that I really haven't seen in a lot of videos. So I wanted to share that with you guys, because those are things that are useful for me, and maybe they are useful for you as well. Okay, so that is enough background on this walkthrough. So let's talk about the game. And like I said, I will be talking about lore a little bit. I may have to actually make lore videos, and I will I will put him in between the walkthrough if I find that that is a better mechanism to tell my representation of the lore. But here we are in the Northern Undead Asylum, and we are undead, and we have been branded with the dark sign. And I will try to put together my interpretation of what the dark sign is when we finally get to the DLC, because I think it's going to make more sense then. And this undead knight here, his name is Oscar, and he's wearing either the knight armor or the elite knight armor. He's trying to help us out, and he just dumped a body in our jail cell, and the body has some treasure on it. That's the shining object that's kind of floating on top of him. So let's go see what that is. So that happens to be the dungeon cell key, and that is going to allow us to open the door and get out of jail, and let's break out of here. So we hear some thumping, and first thing we see is a demon, a pretty formidable demon. And if Dark Souls is going to be anything like Demon Souls, we are probably going to have to face that demon fairly soon with not the best of equipment and with very low stats, a very low character, a very low level character. Okay, so we've gone into this courtyard. It's not actually a courtyard, because if you look up, I think there's a ceiling on there. And we're walking through this courtyard, or through this temple, and the asylum demon ambushes us. And we don't have a weapon, so we have to run away. If you try to take on him, I mean, you can with your broken sword, but it's going to take a very, very long time and a lot of skill to get through that. Alright, so we start picking up some loot, and in case you were wondering, there is nothing here in this little room. But we've just picked up the small leather shield, which is going to be our inferior shield that the sorcerer class gets early in the game. And by the way, the sorcerer is probably the weakest starting class in the game, and that's because of the very, very low levels of dexterity, vitality, and strength. The attunement and the intelligence are high, but those are not a lot of help early on. And here's the first trap of the game, which we've just stripped. And I'm also going to open up this door, and that actually becomes a shortcut, so that when we come back to this area later in the game, we can very quickly come through this area and have access to an item. So we are talking to our buddy here. His name is Oscar, or at least that's the speculation. And apparently he is not doing very well. He's injured. He's about ready to die, and he's asking us if we could help him. He wants us to take over his mission. So he's actually failed miserably here. The game just started, at least for us, and he's dead. We were the Northern Undead Aylum, and he's already dying. And if you see that hole up in the ceiling there, what I think would happen here is that the asylum demon grabbed him, threw him down, threw him to that hole, and injured him. He's mortally wounded, and he's about ready to die. So he gives us an Estus flask, and he gives us a key, and then he also tells us to get away from him because he is going to turn hollow, and when he does, he's essentially going to become a zombie, and he will attack us. So if you don't care about all of this dialogue with Oscar, you can actually kill him, and he will drop the Estus flask and the key right away. And it's a shame that this character was actually cut from the game. There is a lot more dialogue that was intended, and a bigger role that was intended for this character, for this NPC at the beginning of the game. He was supposed to show up throughout the game in a couple of different areas, and he was supposed to be your companion. So similar to the knight Astraba, I believe, in Demon Souls, he was basically going to fill the same role, but the developers changed their mind and completely took him out of the game. And it's a little bit of an awkward beginning because of that, because he helps you out, you meet him, he looks like he's pretty heroic, he's got the elite knight armor, he's got some good equipment, but right off the bat he dies. So I think it's unfortunate that NPC story didn't get developed and didn't mature or didn't proceed, and From Software decided to go a different way. Okay, so our sorcerer just has a dagger and a sorcerer catalyst, which we can use to cast Soul Arrow. And the dagger is good for parry and riposte and backstabs because it has high critical attack, and we can use our catalyst to do some ranged attacks with Soul Arrow. Now Soul Arrow is a little bit slow on the draw, so you'll see me take a hit here from this undead archer, and we're going to come into this little annex here, and there is an armor undead, and you see me miss a parry there. And we will be back to open this door. And by the way, there are going to be a ton of spoilers here, especially if I start talking about lore. So let me know if you guys want me to do completely separate lore videos. Let me know if you want me to avoid spoilers, and also let me know about the quality of the audio in the video. I think the quality of the video is very good, but I'm looking forward to your comments on the audio. Let me know if I'm talking too fast, too slow, and if you do want me to talk about the lore as I progress through the game, or if you want me to make separate videos for it. Alright, so a little bit about strategies for this boss. I like to park myself on his right thigh and chop at him with the weapon when I have a melee character. If you're playing with the sorcerer or with the pyromancer, he is a piece of cake. You just stand back and you just either fire Soul Arrow or you fire Fireball at him, and he is going to be terminated pretty quickly here. So he's going to give us about a couple of thousand souls or so, which is a pretty nice quantity early in the game. He also gives us humanity, and so right off the bat we are introduced to this concept of humanity. What is humanity? Is humanity your consciousness? Well, in Dark Souls, the game, humanity is not your consciousness, because humanity is actually something that you get from enemies. So it's not. It may be inherent in your character, but it is a tangible thing that you can accumulate and that you can sort of amass, or you can pick up. All right, so this is a nest, and we will be. There's actually a character, an NPC that we can use to trade items with. He's kind of a merchant. He does give you some useful items, so. We're not going to use them for this build, but if you guys didn't know about the, I'm going to call him Sparkly the Crow. If that's wrong, I apologize, but that's what I'm going to call him. But if you didn't know about him, he is right there, and when you come back to this area of the game later on, you can trade items with him, and you can either do trial and error and drop things in his nest and see if he trades with you. Or you can go to the wikis, or you can go on the internet, and you can get a list of exactly what are some of the items that he trades with you and what you will get in return. Okay, so a crow, a giant crow, has just picked us up and taken us from the Northern Undead Aylum into Lordran. Now, here's my first bit of speculation. It appears to me that any giant character, other than the other than the blacksmith and Anor Londo and some of the giants in Sen's Fortress, are gods, or are very important characters. So the crow could be a god, could be a deity that's in the sky. So that's a little bit of speculation. That's something that I'm going to try to piece together as we walk through this, as we go through this walkthrough. All right, so let's talk to the Crestfallen merchant here, and this guy is not much fun, and he is very sarcastic. He is going to give us backhanded compliments throughout the game. He does give us a little bit of help. He's telling us about the 2 bells of awakening that we have to ring, and where they are, and he's essentially telling us, hey, go ring the bells and see what happens. Maybe something fun or something special will happen. So he's also telling us that we are in the accursed land of the undead. So Lordran apparently is full of undead, and the undead are humans that have been born with the dark sign that have died. And in undead form, you look like a desiccated mummy. You don't look very pretty. You look pretty nasty. Alright, so let's go on a little bit of a treasure hunt here. And this is a chest. I've never had a use for it, but supposedly in that chest will be important items that you need to progress through the game, that you may have misplaced or dropped, or maybe if there was a crash while you were getting an important item that you need to progress through the game puts it on that chest. I've never had a use for it. You guys let me know in the comments if that's ever been useful to you. If items have shown up, I would be interested. And we just saw the crow perched up there. And by the way, you can damage the crow. You can take a bow and you can shoot him. And we're going to be using the great scythe in this walkthrough. And you can actually swing up and you can hit the crow and he will fly away. So if you were wondering what happens when you hit the crow, we'll actually do it. But he is going to fly away after we do a little bit of damage to him. But he will still, and spoiler here, he will still move us back and forth to the Northern Undead Aylum. Regardless of whether we attack him or not. Alright, so this is the second NPC that we are going to meet, and this is Petros of Firelink.
Have you business with us?
And Petros is one of the, I'm going to call them gatekeepers for the covenants, or a covenant giver. And you're going to find various NPCs throughout the game that, if you interact with them, will allow you to participate or gain membership into a covenant. So he gives us a copper coin. He's not very friendly. He wants us to get out of his face initially, but after we come back and talk to him, he gives us a copper coin to stay away, and if we talk to him some more, he starts telling us about his friends. Then he starts telling us about the fact that he can teach us miracles if we join his covenant, which I'm going to do to show you the dialogue, and we'll talk more about this guy. So now that we've joined his covenant, he is going to let us buy miracles from him, and he tells us that the miracles are directly proportional to faith. So, and he's got one of the more useful gestures for PvP, which is that shrug. So we see some of the items that he sells here, and we are not going to be doing a faith build at all. So he is pretty much, he's going to be pretty useless to us.
We are her defenses to keep.
And apparently he's waiting for Milady, and he appears to be a member of a guard or a bodyguard for Milady, and we will find out who Milady is later in the game. Okay, so I'm going to continue to pick up souls, and we are going to drop down into this elevator shaft, and here's a little bit of loot here. So the Homeward Bone, which will take you back to the latest bonfire you arrested, and a Morning Star and a Talisman, which is what Petros was using, and a cracked red-eye orb, which will allow you to invade other worlds if you are in human form. And we'll talk more about that later when we get into New Londo. And some Lloyd's Talismans, which are actually a pretty useful item. In PvP, they'll prevent your enemy from healing with Estus Flasks. And in the game, you can throw them at a Mimic, and the Mimic will give up his item. But we're actually not going to use any of those items. We are going to be hoarding a lot of souls, so pretty much any enemy that we come in contact with, and any NPC that we come in contact with that we can kill, we will eventually kill for the souls, and that's because we want to advance our build as much as possible so that we are pretty powerful and that we don't suffer too much once we get into the downloadable content, which is a pretty tough challenge. Okay, so continuing with our tour of Firelink, we are going down here, and there are a lot of characters that are behind cells or in dungeons in this game. It's a little bit depressing, but a lot of that's sort of a recurring theme throughout the game, that a lot of these characters either punish themselves and put themselves in dungeons or in jails, or are jailed or are imprisoned by forces within the game, some nefarious forces in some cases. So that was Anastacia, and you can actually help me determine her fate. If you want her to live or you want her to die, you can let me know in the comments, and based on the number of comments I get either way, I will either let her live or let her die. So this is, I guess, going to be an interactive walkthrough, since you are going to have real-time input on what I do here. Okay, so we are going to pick up the Estok, which is an excellent weapon, and it's essentially a cross between a thrusting sword and a spear, and it will let you sit behind a shield and take pot shots at opponents. And it made my old top 10 list, and I'll be coming up with a video of the new top 10 weapons after this walkthrough, so you guys will just have to wait to see if it's still on my top 10 weapons list. So we are going to pick up a Firekeeper soul down here in New Londo, and as you can see, New Londo is flooded and there are ghosts. So the easiest way to get this Firekeeper soul is to grab it and then immediately pop a Homeward Bone, and you won't have to deal with the ghosts or anything like that. In early game, you can either suicide, or like I did, you can use a Homeward Bone immediately after picking up the Firekeeper soul. Okay, now we're going to get some more souls. There is actually some more loot that we could see off in the distance, so we are going to go ahead and get that. And first of all, we're going to make good use of our ranged attack, and I'm going to warn you right off the bat, guys, that I am not very good with range spells or with bows. So until I get a good melee weapon, this could get really ugly. Hopefully I won't die, but I'm not good with bows or with magic spells. Okay, so I need to get to that aqueduct. So I need to do a running jump here. Woo! And this part always makes me feel a little nauseous almost. It makes me feel a little nervous, like I'm going to fall off. And we've just received the Ring of Sacrifice, which if you equip it and you die, it will shatter, but it will allow you to maintain your souls and your humanity. Or if you put it on after you've died and you're on your way to pick up your bloodstain, assuming that you had quite a bit of souls or humanity to pick up, if you die on the way there, your bloodstain will remain on the ground, so it sort of gives you a second chance to get to your bloodstain. Alright, and let's see if this buttface has anything else to say. And he's basically telling us that we're ugly and we almost look like we're hollow. And then he says something which is kind of puzzling. He says going hollow will solve quite a bit. So I think he knows that he's going crazy and that he will eventually go hollow. Alright guys, well this is going to wrap it up for the first video. This is the Tech Phantom signing off. I hope you are enjoying this walkthrough.